I was gonna see if I can get you on camera to
No,
figure it out.
no. It was probably going to come to me as we were discussing, but oh well.
Well, do you have a beer? I one thing I noticed from the last episode in a fun-loving way is as soon as you had that beer, you became like a tenfold savage compared to like non one beer in lighting.
Maybe I'll have to go get one. I try to
Well,
behave, but now you're tempting me. It was Miller's third birthday yesterday, so
there
we
you go.
did bring up we have some beer that was brewed last year that has his picture on it. It was part of a dog fundraiser. There's like 10 dogs on it, and he's one of them. So I had one of those for his birthday because he's 3, so in dog years he's 21. So we got him a dog beer, and we shared our first beer together. That's how pathetic I am as a dog dad. So
Don't say it like that. I think there's a lot of people out there that aspire to that
oh,
level. But
one more thing on Miller. So you might not know this. Actually, you might know this. Yeah, you do know this because you've tweeted it at people. That obviously the Packers touchdown song is "Bang on the Drum," "Bang on My Drum,"
I hate that song.
and we have trained Miller since we got him during football season a couple years ago. We trained him that whenever that song comes on, to bark and jump. So every Sunday morning when we get up during the season, I hook up my Bluetooth speaker and like put that on full volume, and he starts running around the house, barking, jumping around. So it's great when we have people over for a game and we score a touchdown. I'll play it, and he starts going crazy. And I like to think he knows what's going on, but of course he doesn't. But nonetheless,
He
it's
for sure
very
does.
entertaining.
Whatever. Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of judgment from Sammy on like the morning of week 1 because I was just playing a compilation of all the broadcast intro musics and was just playing them at full volume and just randomly screaming excitement because I was so ready for football to start. So, no, I don't think that's weird at all. I think that's pretty normal. And my actually, it is kind of football related this week, but the topic I wanted to bring up to you is not sure if you have one, but do you have any memories of the NCAA football game series back when it existed?
Absolutely. I two stories on that. One, had a high school friend, Parker. I would go to his house during winter break, and we would always play head to head. Another high school friend, Nick Rod. We'd always play head to head. Nick Rod was a savage at that game. He was so good. Um, and then two, my freshman year of college. You're gonna love this, Matt. My roommate brought his Xbox 360 to the dorms, and we got our hands on NCAA 12 or whatever it was our freshman year. Maybe it was 12 or 13, and I started a um, dynasty profile with the Miami of Ohio Bobcats, and people in my dorm floor bought Miami of Ohio Bobcats gear, and I would play one game each night, and all the guys from the floor would come watch the game, and we did like 6 seasons of this, and I played it on like Heisman or whatever the highest one was to try to. So like the first season, I went like 5-6, but then I worked on recruiting and slowly built our way up. I ended up joining the Big Ten towards like the end of the dynasty. Um, that game was epic. I loved doing dynasties with really subpar schools and building them up. That was my favorite thing to do.
You should do Wisconsin next time.
Hmm. I said very subpar. Wisconsin's on par. They're average.
Tell that to Washington State. Oh, and it's Ohio State weekend. What's is it going to be over under 45-point defeat?
Oh, under. It'll be under 45 with Wisconsin's defense. It'll be probably. It's going to be one of these games where Wisconsin keeps it close in the first half, and then in the third quarter, Ohio State's going to bust it open.
Okay, give me an actual like solid over under number.
I'm going to say Ohio State 14 and a half.
Wow. Okay, I will hammer the over on that, and I will bet you anything on that.
What is it right now?
Let me double check because that they're gonna win by 3 touchdowns at least.
Mm,
I mean, their offense is just. I don't. It's not
17 and a
anything
half.
against. Okay. Well, do you want to change to 17.5? I'll still take the
No,
over.
I mean, I guess I should, but I think 14 and a half is reasonable. I was somewhere between 14 and a half and 16 and a half. Um, it's gonna be the typical Wisconsin. Our defense is gonna carry us through the first 2.5 quarters. Ohio State's gonna bust it open, and then we might score once or twice, just kind of in garbage time to cover the spread. It's very on brand for Wisconsin and Ohio State, other than one or two occasions.
I mean, we have New Mexico State this weekend, so please be thinking of us because that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, the team that Wisconsin's questionable offense just dropped 66 points on. Yeah, have fun.
Yes, that one. Yes. I'm actually excited to see our backup
But think
quarterback
about how much
'cause
money
I
that
think,
college just made.
dude, I think was it Kent State's played Washington, Oklahoma, and now they're going to Georgia this weekend. And it's like between those three games, they are paying for all of their whole season's worth of expenses just with those three games.
Wow.
And and they actually held their own against Washington. I think Oklahoma took them down, and then Georgia's the number one team in the country, in my opinion. And they're gonna do just unspeakable things to them this weekend. But it's kind of a I don't I feel like it'd be kind of demoralizing playing for
Did you
that
did you
team.
did you watch College Game Day this past Saturday?
I did not. I'm not actually the only part that I like is when they pick.
Well,
The
that's the part I was going to
teams,
reference.
but
So I grew up on College Game Day in college in the dorm room. College Game Day was always on. I've kind of gotten away from it since I got out of college. I think it's just because I do other things on my Saturday mornings now. But there's still that um, like nostalgia factor to it. I don't know. It just brings me back. But during the picks this week, they had Luke Combs come on because he's an App State grad, and they were doing it at App State. He actually flew from Green Bay because he did a concert Friday night to Boone, North Carolina to do the picks Saturday morning, then back to Green Bay to do the concert on Saturday night. So pretty hectic. But when he got to the Texas A&M game, he said, "Jimbo, Texas A&M, I appreciate the 1.5 million donation to my alma mater, so I'm sticking with you this week as a thank you."
yeah, we were actually watching that game live at the cabin, and I just jumped out of my chair when Appalachian State won there at the end with the
That was
Hail Mary.
crazy.
So circling back, the reason I brought up the NCAA game, it's probably my second or third favorite game series or just individual game. I think NCAA 13 with RG3 on the front of it was my favorite for the longest time. And I played with my college roommate too, and I played a ton as a kid, and it always just had this intangible factor that made it better than Madden, and I always really enjoyed it. And then it went away after the 2014 game for a lot of political and financial reasons. It was just really hard for them to keep up with all of the commercial rights they had to secure for all 100+ schools, conferences, bowl games, etc. But thankfully, EA is bringing it back next year.
Yeah, like 11
years?
months from now.
11 months from now. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. And it's going to be one of those things where I'm super excited for it. And then it'll probably be disappointing. But I just have not gotten into a Madden in a long time. The last time I played Madden was with you when you stomped me.
The new ones are, I don't want to say terrible, but they're just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I haven't played the new one yet, but I mean, I remember Prime Madden, like the 03 to 07 era when like Marshall Falk and Mike Vick and Ray Lewis and Donovan McNabb and Favre were on the cover. Those were like the best Maddens. Those are the best.
Yeah. So there was definitely some good Maddens, but yeah, there hasn't been one I played recently that I've really enjoyed.
No.
I think Madden 25 might have been the last one I actually enjoyed. So really excited for the NCAA series to come out, and I think a lot of people out there are super excited too. So yeah, that was that. Week 2 in the books. Should we? No, we shouldn't start with Bears Packers, should we?
No, we can make the people wait.
Although the longer we wait, the more
I,
the longer we wait, I'm gonna be more pissed
I
off
gotta
about
get
it.
a.
But
I
we
gotta go
can-
get a beer and excuse me. I have to go get a beer so I can have one of those when we talk about that game.
Go ahead. I'll just get the people recapped on the Eagles Vikings real quick. The Eagles and the Vikings played on Monday night, and the Eagles looked real good. They looked like a well-oiled machine. Jalen Hurts, once David gets back, we'll have to talk about him, did a very impressive job. And I think I saw today that PFF, which I don't put too much stock in, but I know a lot of people out there do, has him as the highest graded passer so far this year. A.J. Brown wasn't as involved, but definitely a focal point of that offense to draw attention. Other guys like Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins were getting involved, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott. So they looked really good. And then on the flip side, on the other side of the ball, Darius Slay looked amazing against Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins didn't have his best night. A couple really bad interceptions. The Vikings defense didn't look particularly up for it. The Watkins touchdown looked like a particularly bad breakdown in coverage. So a little bit of water poured down on the Vikings after a very impressive Week 1 win over the Packers. Right on cue.
Oh my God, that was the worst time for me to put my headset back on.
Yeah, well, I was just saying that they little cool down for the Vikings after a strong Week 1. Something about them playing in Philly doesn't work well, but Jalen Hurts, you and I have not been very high on him. I gotta admit, he looked pretty damn good, not only last week, but this week's too, and I think the Vikings defense is much better than the Lions defense. So, I mean, if he can keep going, I'll tell you what, they can be definitely strong contenders in the NFC.
Yeah, one of the things that's been really impressive with Jalen Hurts that I've seen so far this year is I feel like he's starting to strike a good balance of knowing when to run instead of necessarily relying on his feet. You saw it a few times last night, but yeah, proving the haters wrong, that's for sure. And I think we talked about it a little bit last week too, but the whole A.J. Brown acquisition, I think, is paying some deep dividends right now for him specifically.
Yeah, and on the flip side, the Titans look like shit. So there's that too. So, yeah, and then the Vikings, I mean, I don't want to say it was a write-off because any game where Kirk Cousins is starting on a Monday night game, you're just kind of screwed. But they'll look for a bounce back against the Lions this week. I'm sure they'll be fine. But
Lions are frisky though.
So I just want to preface this by saying I've already made my picks. But who do you think you're going to pick for between the Lions and the Vikings?
Is it in Minnesota?
Yes.
Definitely Minnesota.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park by any means.
That's the same logic I used. What was the same logic I used on the Jaguars?
I think the Lions have some crazy record of covering the spread. I think they're 18-3 against the spread or something like that. It's something bizarre. I don't think that's exactly it, but it's incredible how close they play a lot of teams.
Who knew the Detroit Lions were Vegas's worst nightmare?
Yeah.
The Cardiac Kitties. Well, yeah, I guess it makes sense because they always come back and contend, even when they're down by 30 points at half. Next, the Chiefs-Chargers on Thursday night. Couple different things to discuss with this one. First off, did you watch the Thursday night game?
I did.
Old man lighting figure out how the prime works?
I did figure it out. We had a trivia night before, so I tuned in late in the first half, but I did figure out prime. It took me a little while because my Wi-Fi was acting up.
No.
I know, never. But we did get it up on the big screen, not just my phone, which is where I was originally streaming it. What did you think of the Prime broadcast? I'm just curious. I have some weird thoughts, and they might only be my thoughts, but I want to hear what you thought of the broadcast overall.
So I was at a B-Dubs, so didn't get to hear too much. I can just imagine that Kirk Herbstreit wasn't very fun to listen to, and Al Michaels is okay commentator, but just a weird pairing. The visuals and everything looked pretty cool, and I know their intro music or whatever is pretty neat for being a new one. It's pretty nice to listen to. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, it was fine.
It definitely was weird hearing Herbstreit on it. I think he's phenomenal at college games. He just sounds a little awkward in NFL games. I know he's done some like the Monday night ones and stuff in the past. He'll get better. Herb Street, I think he's one of the best in the business right now, just across all sports. Obviously, primarily college, but he'll figure it out.
Disagree.
We can talk about that at a later time. It's because you're Mr. CBS. That's why.
Well, yeah, I mean, Gary Danielson is the bomb. So, yes, you're probably on
Okay,
something.
I would disagree with that. I think Gary Danielson's a fool.
You just hate him because he's a former Lion.
No.
Him
No
and
hate.
him and Vern Lundquist is always going to be one of the most iconic duos. I
Yes,
think.
but so Vern, phenomenal.
Yes.
He carried Gary's weight. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say it.
No.
Yes, just like Nestler is carrying Gary in today's landscape as well.
Mankato
Just-
alum Brad Nessler.
Just my opinion. Anyways, on the Amazon Prime game, the visuals were a little too good. I don't know if it was like my Wi-Fi was working at peak efficiency or what, but like the clarity just seemed it was very good. I don't know, it was weird. I just felt like it I don't know. Again, could have
You're
just
just
been me.
subject to the Fox graphics your whole life. That's why you notice.
That's pretty fair. But just like the quality of like the picture and the clarity and stuff just seemed very, very good. And then the only other thing was I thought their graphics were a little weird. Like the Prime logo just didn't scream football to me, like on the mics, the Thursday Night Prime logo on the mics, the whatever they call those. And then in the background too, it felt more like the Nickelodeon broadcast. And maybe it's because it's the light blue or something. I don't know.
Well, what I heard you just say is Old Man Lighting really enjoyed the clarity of the internet-based
did.
game that he didn't know how that worked 2 weeks ago.
I
There we go,
almost
that's-
stayed up for the whole thing too.
Wave of the future
Felt-
is the internet.
Yeah.
Well, on that, so Chargers looked real good early. Chiefs did not look particularly good on offense early. The touchdown pass by Mahomes in the first half was pretty brilliant. But it definitely looked like the Chargers were onto something. And then there was a pivotal moment in the game where Mahomes threw a brutal pass, and it looked like it was picked off by Asante Samuel Jr. And then after video review, they determined the ball touched the ground. It didn't look like it touched the ground to me. It didn't look like they had indisputable evidence to overturn that, especially since they called it on the field an interception. Did you see it that way?
Yeah, I saw it the same way you did.
So I thought the game was over at that point because then they were going to be up by 10 with the ball right outside the red zone. But Chiefs got it and made a game of it. And then the Chargers went down to the red zone and there was a pick six. I think it was, who was it, Everett, the tight end. He was gassed. I'll give it to him. He was trying to get off the field, but they ran up to the line.
I know, but like I feel like there's got to be some awareness on behalf of Brandon Staley or even Justin Herbert to be like, this guy shouldn't be running a play right now. It's not like it was no timeouts, 20 seconds left. You got to stay out there. I feel like, okay, maybe leave him on the field, but don't target him.
Right.
I don't know. I thought maybe that's asking too much, but it was so obvious. I mean, he looked like how I look when I used to play like snow football, and I would like slip and fall while I was trying to guard somebody, and then I'd stand up and just stand there and watch the play happen. Like, you're just so exhausted and don't even care. Like, he was more worried about his mouth guard than he was chasing down the interception.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're talking about a guy that's going to go for it on 4th and 2 from his own 15-yard line. So I'm not sure awareness is one of Coach Staley's strong points.
See, but I feel like he didn't go. I feel like he didn't go for it as much this week as he traditionally has. It's almost like he knows his team is better, so he doesn't need to take those chances.
I'll tell you what, after watching the game, big Derwin James believer now. I don't know if I've
Me
actually
too.
ever seen a full game with Derwin James in it. Yeah, I've seen highlights. I've seen some big hits there, but man, that guy is good. He's everywhere. That whole defense is really good. Their secondary is exceptional. I think adding J.C. Jackson makes them really good in the mix. their linebacker group, Van Noy, Tranquil, like that, like their defensive line. I mean, that defense. I mean, they had the unfortunate job of going up against a really stacked offense and one of the best play callers of all time. So I think that's going to always throw you for a little bit of a loop. But tell you what, after watching that game, I'm much higher on the Chargers than I was before the game, and I am much higher on Justin Herbert. For him to gut out the end there, when he had the chance to run it for on the 3rd and 1 and pulled up and just threw it into the dirt because he couldn't run from his rib injury, and then on 4th and 1 to throw like a 35-yard dime in a perfect fashion to set him up for 1st and goal. I think that got a lot of people's respect. So I know before the season I wasn't ready to put him as a top 5 quarterback, but he's on the verge for me to being there. I mean, he's going to be a statistical god if he keeps this up. He's going to pretty much shatter every single passing record we have in the record book if he keeps this up for 10, 15 years.
I don't have anything else in that game, other than you kind of touched on it, the rib injury. Did you see the news that the team doctor that is supposed to be working with him is the same one that punctured Tyrod Taylor's lungs when they were working on his rib injury, and Tyrod Taylor's suing him for like $5 million or something like that?
Talk about a potentially franchise-altering move, because they were going
Right.
full Matt Nagy, and we're going to keep Herbert on the bench for as long as they could, even if they were 4-9 or whatever by Thanksgiving. So yeah, talk about a doctor that inadvertently made a franchise-altering move, because now that job's Herbert's until he is injured, leaves, or retires. So
Yeah, the Los Angeles Chargers doctor who is caring for Justin Herbert's fractured rib cartilage is being sued for medical malpractice by former Chargers quarterback Tyrod Taylor, who is seeking at least $5 million after suffering a punctured lung while being treated for a rib injury in 2020.
oops. Well, there's a lot of litigation and insurance and everything involved. So, I mean, he's still employed by the Chargers, so it couldn't be that bad, right? I mean, maybe
I
they threw him some
guess.
money under the table. Well, we can get our
Yeah, he
tinfoil
did it
out.
purposefully.
Yeah, get our tinfoil out real quick. The Dolphins beat the Ravens 42-38 in pretty remarkable fashion after being down 21 points. On the Ravens side, just want to give a shout out to Lamar Jackson. His payday is going up pretty much by the game. Every game you can just probably tack on 2-3 more million in the total. So the longer they go, I think the worse the Ravens may be kicking themselves when we get to the offseason here of what they could have done versus what they're going to have to do now. But to focus on one of our favorite subjects on this podcast in Tua, I just want to hear your thoughts about the comeback, the insane stat line he put up. What was like 480 and 6 touchdowns, 2 picks. The leading of the comeback. Where did you get a chance to see all that? What were your thoughts on any of it or all of it?
Oh, baby, did I. I tweeted earlier this year that I will never tweet about my fantasy football team, which I still won't do. But damn it, I'm talking about it tonight. Tua's my number 1 quarterback on my team. So it was looking bleak in the first half. I was like, damn it, Tua. But the best part is the team I was playing also had Jalen Waddle. So our final points total was just through the roof this week. So I'm not sure. Have you seen this Twitter account that's titled "We Are Tuanon"?
I've heard of it. I've heard of Tuanon.
Yeah, I first heard it. We talked about some of the other podcasts. I first heard it on Pardon My Take last year. They were talking about this Tuanon account. Well, there's this guy that runs an account that is the biggest Tuanon, Tua stan, Tua supporter that you'll ever find. And now even like Louis Riddick is tweeting out #Tuanon. So I'm pretty excited for when the shirts start to come out, Tuanon shirts and stuff. Because if he keeps putting up performances like this for me as my starting quarterback, I might have to invest in one of those. But it almost felt like, talking about like NCAA, like, hey, I'm just going to get the ball to my fastest players and hope that they do good things. It's
Yep.
kind of like what the Dolphins resorted to in that second half, and it worked. I think do you know the numbers on how many times Waddle and Tyreek Hill were targeted combined?
I don't, but I know they had a combined like 360 yards of receiving.
I think they were targeted like 35 times or something like that.
Well, I guess that's just my problem with it. I mean, like, yeah, he made some good throws, and yeah, I think his best one was to Craycraft. Like he danced around the pocket, did a complete 360, went to his dominant side, and then found Craycraft streaking in the middle of the end zone. I thought that one play was really good. There's a couple other throws. I'm like, that was a dime, and that was dime. But you're talking like the one where, like Tyreek Hill tied the game. That was like the worst blown coverage I've ever seen from a. It's not like they let. It's not like those Vikings where they let Quez Watkins go, right? You're talking Tyreek Hill. Everybody should know that Tyreek Hill is just gonna run as fast as he can and get open. You cannot have a miscommunication in your secondary at that point in the game with that receiver. How the corner and the safety weren't on the same page, and I think it was Armour Jones was the corner. How they're not on the same page, and Tyreek is just allowed to run straight past him and have 15-yard separation from everybody. I mean, like any quarterback in the NFL could have made that throw. Where he threw it to Waddle in the first half, where he threw it over the linebacker. Again, had to get a right touch on it, but it wasn't blanket coverage. Waddle catches it and then runs 50 yards. I'm going to sit here and say that if that was Mitch Trubisky playing, I think Mitch Trubisky would have had 450 yards and 6 touchdowns. If that was Jared Goff, no problem. If that was anybody, if that was Trey Lance, I don't think they would have a problem. So that's where I just have a tough time still buying into this Tua hype because I feel like you stick any quarterback within reason to that situation, they're going to succeed when you have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Mike Gesicki, and a really competent coach calling plays for you. I think that's a successful situation for anybody. So I'm still not really into this Tua hype train that's going on.
I said it kind of tongue in cheek. I am becoming more of a believer by the week, but I do think all of those factors play into it. But I mean, they do for guys like Josh Allen too. You know, I mean, look at the offense he has around him. I'm by no means am I saying Josh Allen is better or Tua is better than Josh Allen. Josh Allen's on another planet compared to Tua, but having that around him at a young age, I think, helped him elevate quicker.
I think the difference is, though, is that, I think barring Stephon Diggs, I think Josh Allen makes everybody on that offense better versus I think the people in Miami make Tua better, if that makes sense.
That's fair. And I think the coaching in Miami probably makes a bigger difference than it does in Buffalo.
That's true. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think Buffalo's been really blessed to have really good coaching the last 4 or 5 years to have kind of stability to help out Josh Allen and be comfortable. And, they lose their offensive coordinator and maybe one of those things where, like, when the Chiefs lost Matt Nagy and all of a sudden their offense got better. Maybe it's one of those situations where, Dorsey comes in as the offensive coordinator. Maybe he's actually better than Dable. So I don't know. Anyways, full credit to the Dolphins and for Tua. I mean, it still takes a lot of tenacity to overcome a 21-point deficit. A lot of questions need to be asked of the Ravens defense. I know they're bringing in Jason Pierre-Paul for tryout / physical, and old friend alert Blake Martinez, longtime Packer, is going in as well. I don't know if they've signed him as of this point today, Tuesday, but it looks like they're already looking for reinforcements on that defense. But a lot of questions to be asked there. I think, was it like Tua, just one more Tua fact, he's like 8-0 against future Hall of Fame coaches or something, or Super Bowl winning coaches or something like that. So maybe the Tuanon are onto something. Tell you what, your boy may be having some regrets about going to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I know last week we did the whole Devontae Adams stat line versus the entire Packers receiving corps stat line. So today I just pulled up the Devontae Adams versus the Sammy Watkins stat line just for shits and giggles.
Lost.
Okay, it was just Devontae Adams makes every football team better, but it's hilarious that Sammy Watkins is averaging 6 more yards per catch than Devontae Adams, and his longest is 15 yards longer than Devontae Adams.
How many games in
And
are we?
he's 2, but it's just a funny visual to see Sammy Watkins outperforming those numbers on Devontae. Now, Devontae has double the receptions, but he probably also has like triple or quadruple the targets.
All right. Well,
I just think it's funny.
I'm glad you got that out of your system. It's all shit, but I'm just happy for you and your visuals.
Hey, I've said all along, I want Devontae. Hell, if he had 2,000 yards receiving and 20 touchdowns this year, I would be over the moon. I think that would be awesome.
Well, I think the next couple of games we're going to talk about here are all kind of crazy. So
Just so you know, when I do things like this, it kind of is to fly in the face of all of the hilarious stat comparisons that people like to put out this early in the season, which I dropped some in for later in the episode because they are just like confirmation bias for me. That's the only reason I'm using them. But I do like to make fun of these.
Carson Wentz has never lost to a head coach who had AZ in his first name.
Is it
I'm just
Tua?
making that up. I actually have no idea, but that's the kind of stuff that gets like peddled out and it drives me nuts. Or like baseball has the most obscure stats of all time.
Oh, Tua's never lost to a quarterback with an O in their last name.
Why is that a thing? who cares?
Same thing.
So what if he comes up against
Rodgers? Rodgers has an O.
When is
see.
that?
They play
Oh,
this
that's
year.
this year.
Christmas
I'd say
Day.
that is this
Christmas
year.
Day.
Ooh, that'll be fun. I want to see Tyreek against Stokes. That'll be a great time. So back to the Raiders. They had a 23-point lead and blew it. And gotta give it to him. Kyler Murray, he was quite impressive in the second half. I think it was equally funny that basically I think there was a stat that said Derek Carr didn't touch the field for a 30 straight minutes of like actual time. Like he was on the sideline for 30 straight minutes, which is just mind blowing.
Sounds like an Aaron Rodgers playoff stat.
Kinda, yeah. Except I guess the Raiders lost. So, so we kind of did one of these last week. Was the Cardinals comeback more impressive or were the Raiders that bad? Were they more impressive in their own defeat?
That's more embarrassing for the Raiders.
And they got a lucky bounce in overtime when Hollywood Brown, who's doing a phenomenal job so far in the year, well worth the trade. Sarcasm. So he dropped the ball. Raiders get it back. Renfro fumbles, scoop and score. Almost hilarious because the guy who scooped the ball almost did the like cardinal sin of defense, which is you drop the ball before you get to the end zone. So he's like, which is hilarious because then the Raiders would have actually won because he threw it out the back of the end zone. So that would have been a safety, which would have been just phenomenally funny. I don't care what anybody says. I would have laughed my ass off. So I just don't know where the Raiders are going wrong. And maybe this is like reverse Josh McDaniels because when his first coaching stint with Denver, he started out, I think, like 6-0 and then they didn't make the playoffs. Maybe he's doing the opposite. Maybe he's going to start out like 0-4 and then they're going to win like 11 in a row. Probably not because they're in the AFC West. But something is not working, clearly. And I don't know because they have the talent. I just don't understand why it's not coming together for them.
It's funny because when earlier this season we talked about during our previews, I said I was still a Derek Carr believer, not a like huge like Derek Carr's top 10, but I am starting to seriously doubt that take.
I think I looked into it. If they cut him after this year, they have to eat $5 million in dead cap. So now is like it's almost you can think of it therefore as like a contract year for Carr because if he doesn't perform, they can just boot him and draft Bryce Young or something. I still have faith. I still think they're going to get this turnaround. They're running, especially in that division, they're going to run out of time real quick too. I mean, they're going to need 10 wins just to get to a wild card spot. And so obviously they're going to need to win 66% of the rest of their games to do that. So, and because who was it in Chargers week 1. I mean, that's a tough matchup. I don't consider the Cardinals a huge threat for the playoffs. So that especially after being up 23 points, that should have been a win.
At home.
Yeah.
So since 2020, 18 teams have started 0-2. None of them have made the playoffs.
And I think the 2018 Texans were the only one to go 0-3 and make the playoffs or something. And they play the Titans next week, so one of them is going to be 0-3.
So
Unless
I brought that
unless they
up because
tie.
I know the next game we're leading into, we have another surprise 0-2 team. And I just want we can talk about it after
Well,
the next game. But I
actually,
want your
I want to
take
jump ahead
on
one.
which.
I want to jump ahead one real quick because
Another crazy comeback.
well, there was a video that came out of Kyler Murray celebrating with some Cardinal fans, and apparently somebody slapped him. Which don't just. I thought they left Oakland. Well, I guess Vegas is well. It's a different kind of crazy in Vegas, I guess.
Yeah.
I saw a video actually before he came on. The Browns owner Haslam. He was leaving the field and someone chucked a beer bottle or something at him. So now the Browns released a statement saying violence is bad, blah blah blah, peace to the Middle East, and then
Nothing new there. Do you remember the game against the Jaguars when they had to
yes,
cancel the game and they were just showering the field with those
yes,
plastic beer bottles? That, and secondly, take a look at the tailgates going on in your own
oh
parking
boy,
lot, buddy. And
yes.
maybe you should put something out about that because that was a lot more disgusting, if you ask me.
No, we can't release statements about that because you can't release negative statements about your fully guaranteed quarterback. In fact, if you don't support the
How
fully guaranteed
embarrassing.
quarterback, then you are a disgrace.
So, for those that didn't see it, since we're talking Browns now, during the tailgate, or not, well, before the game, there was some fans that had a tailgate set up, and this is a not safe for work, not family friendly discussion, but they had a doll of some sort with a towel over it on a massage table with a sign that said "Happy endings aren't illegal" with a tip jar, and there was a towel over the guy's crotch. And then there was some other fans walking in that had Deshaun Watson jerseys on, and it looked like a husband and wife. And one said, "Sorry, Matt, I don't know if you have to bleep this." One said, one said, and it's what fan base finds humor in this or celebrates that? And I know that's not an indictment on all Browns fans because I think most Browns fans are probably pretty good people. But man, what a just ugly look.
I mean, I shouldn't be surprised from his city where you can buy a house for the price of a VCR, which is also one of my favorite YouTube videos of all time, the poorly made Cleveland tourist videos. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how much of that we have to censor, but it's. I wonder if the police will get involved. I wonder if Haslam is gonna ban that fan for life from coming. Probably gonna. What's the Knicks owner, James Dolan or whatever his name is, who banned a fan for heckling him as he was walking down the tunnel?
Yeah.
That guy's a piece of work. But on this situation, I think Haslam's kind of in the right to take some action if needed.
Yeah,
So
he is.
yeah, but the Browns were up. What was it? 13 against the Jets, who have Joe
They had a
Flacco.
99.8% win probability.
Yeah, and the Jets just scored a touchdown and then did the impossible and got an onside kick too, and then scored another touchdown with 18 seconds left. I saw people going after Nick Chubb on Twitter for scoring that touchdown to put him up by 2 touchdowns. How do you not score there? Are you kidding me? When you're up one score and you think that you score. If you're trying to score to make it, if it's tied with 30 seconds left and you score a touchdown, then you're kind of an idiot. But if you're scoring when you're up already by one possession and you score again, I don't see why he's being portrayed as the reason they lost.
He's certainly not the reason they lost. That's just a series of unfortunate events. But do you remember? I don't remember what year it was, but it was Texans Browns, and he easily could have scored, and he ran out of bounds with 50 seconds left at the goal line.
And what was the net result?
The Browns won. They killed the clock to win the game.
Yeah, because it kind of reminds me of when Gurley tried to stop, couldn't, and then the other team went down and won the game when he was on the Falcons.
So I
It's
was
like,
just trying to figure out. Okay, so there was less than 2 minutes left. The Jets had no timeouts left. If he does go down there, they kneel it out and they win the game. So
yeah,
again,
that's
I'm
why I
not
was,
blaming. I'm not. This is like revisionist history. I mean, they were so close to the end zone. You, yeah, I don't blame him for scoring. But
no, I don't either. So more to be said about the Browns defense and their special teams, less to be said about how good Nick Chubb looked. So I think people need to start pointing the finger other directions. But Browns are going to Browns, I guess. The Bengals are 0-2. Everybody predicted this one, them losing to the Cowboys and Cooper Rush. I'm not quite sure how investing more money into the offensive line has made it worse.
my God, Uh, I don't know if it's the Super Bowl hangover. I don't know what it is, uh, or if it's just because the Cowboys' defense is so good, but their offense looked bad in that game.
I now is not the time to give up on the Bengals. Sure, we could say that their 0-2 start in two very winnable games is less than ideal, but I think it would be a mistake for people to start questioning if Joe Burrow's the guy, or you can maybe start making some questions about the play calling for sure, but or the scheming. But I think to say, Joe, I've been seeing a lot of takes about Joe Burrow on Twitter. Now, I don't think now is the time to give up on him. I think maybe he's been holding the ball slightly too long in certain situations for sure. I think there's some self-analysis that can come out of this, but for people already writing him off as, a one and done kind of quarterback, had one good season, that's it. I think that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, that's a silly take.
But I think what we learned is that Mike McCarthy is a brilliant coach.
Hey, you said it yourself. Best regular season head coach, or one of the best regular season head coaches.
Yeah, but
I mean, everyone saw what he did with Brett Hundley.
is it? I'm not gonna sit here and say that Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott because that's flat out obtuse. I think there is something to be said though if Cooper Rush is 2-0, and I say his win against the Vikings was pretty impressive too because that wasn't a terrible team that he beat. Is there a team is there going to be a team in the next 5 years that just kind of takes a chance on a non-rookie quarterback that they can pay $3 million a year to?
Yeah, the Chicago Bears.
Are you saying we're going to do that next? We're just going to give up on Justin Fields and bring
Yep,
in
3 years. You're bringing Cooper Rush.
Well, it would be something to think about if you're a team like the 49ers who can basically win on running and defense to just instead of paying a quarterback $45 million a year to you, you take the other $42 million of that and invest it into other positions on the team. And if you're the Cowboys and you can win with Cooper Rush, do you need to be paying a quarterback a lot of money? Something to be said.
No, that's silly. So they're like, just like the Packers are not better without Devontae Adams. The Cowboys are not better without Dak Prescott. Remember how good that offense looked last year when they had Dak Prescott at the
Yeah,
beginning
but
of
then
the
they threw
season?
3 points against the Buccaneers, and Cooper Rush beat the
Okay, but that
defending
Buccaneers
Super
defense
Bowl
isn't that
participants.
that Buccaneers defense is no joke.
I just want you to remember that in 20 minutes.
Oh, when we talk about next week, I know.
Yeah,
Hey, their defense is legit.
yeah.
Um, but look at a la Packers Saints 2021, Bills Jaguars 2021. Again, we're only 2 weeks in, so you can't really draw any conclusions. But I think the first game of the season probably said more about the Buccaneers defense and some of the rust on the Cowboys offense than it did for just the Cowboys offense as a whole.
I'm slightly joking in this line of logic. It's more my black and white brain wondering if teams can get away with like not paying quarterbacks an insane amount of money and still somewhat being okay teams. The last bad quarterback to win the Super Bowl was, why don't we say Brad Johnson was bad? Trent Dilfer probably. Almost Rex Grossman.
Almost Rex Grossman, yes.
But I can't think
Yeah.
of like a like somebody that we're not going to look back on and be like that guy. Like, some people might say Eli Manning. I think Eli Manning was a hell of a quarterback.
Yeah, and even Jared Goff. Jared Goff's not terrible, but he didn't have what it took to like raise them to that next level when it mattered most.
That's true. Yeah. So
Jimmy G, same kind of area as Jared Goff, like good serviceable quarterback, but he doesn't have what you need in crunch time.
I guess the Texans are kind of a shining example of that now. Although they're so jacked with, coming off the Watson thing, and now they have all these first round picks to use. So I think the Texans may be pretty good here in about 3-4 years, but Mills is not the answer. We'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, Bengals need to sort it out ASAP because that's not great.
Are they going to make the playoffs?
Yes, I
Division
think
winner or wild card?
it's going to be tough to win. They can still win the division for sure. I don't. No team in the AFC North right now is really standing out to me. I mean, I think the Ravens' offense is really good, but their defense has yet to show me a lot. And then the Browns, I think, are going to be kind of in a tough battle. And we'll briefly touch on the Steelers here in a little bit, but I think the Steelers. I don't think Mitch is the answer, but we'll get there in a second here. But I still think the Bengals have a chance for sure to win the division. Let's see. Lions won. They almost let the Commanders back in it, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is that guy again. He is insanely good.
He is him.
I hate that. I can't. I'm so ready for that to go away already.
I love saying things like that because I love how quickly they die out.
Oh my god! I saw a video of Jalen Ramsey doing it, and I just hate it with a burning passion.
Stephon Diggs was doing it last night too.
God,
I am him.
What does it even mean?
Have you ever seen the video? It's like a lady in a grocery store that's really irritated with someone, and she goes, "You are not him. You are not him," and she points up at heaven like you're not God. So I think it's a riff off of that, like I am him.
So when someone says "I am him," we're comparing themselves to God.
I don't think God necessarily, but it's just a
Is
like
it
the
a
meme
capital H or
culture
a
that
lowercase h?
lower. It's a
Oh
it's a
well, then it's
pronoun.
not God. So we're good.
Yeah.
I mean, Lions won. I mean, other than Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I mean, like Jared Goff looked pretty good, and Aiden Hutchinson had 3 sacks. So I definitely think the people that were overreacting after his Week 1 performance are a little silent this week. We'll see. I mean, they play Vikings this week. I mean, they lost. They came back to the Eagles, but lost, and it's kind of a typical Detroit game. But this one, they were pretty much leading the whole entire game, if not the whole game. So a little bit of a different pace for them, but yeah, all good. Full Carson Wentz experience where he had 40 yards in the first half and then ended up with 330 and 3 touchdowns or whatever. Really good for my FanDuel fantasy league, which is somehow we can do that in Minnesota, but we can't sports bet, but that's fine. So a lot of fun there. Last one I want to get to before we shift into the Bears Packers is the Bucs Saints. Buccaneers won 20-10. One of the 3 50-50 games that we had that you lost all 3 of. So I just wanted to rub that in your face because
Hey, all I'm gonna say is
petty winner.
The Saints hung around for a long time. The Colts and Jaguars completely screwed me. And then what was the other one that I got wrong?
Eagles Vikings.
Eagles Vikings. That one I picked with my heart. Okay, or not heart. I was trying to soothe it because never mind. I have a complicated brain.
Well, I just want to make it plainly clear to you that you lost all of them, even though we already shared that on social media this morning. But I just want you to know that I beat you. I don't get I got too many of these victories, so I got to take where I can get them. It was kind of it wasn't the best of games. It was a really offensive struggle until they got to the fourth quarter. I think it was like 7-3 for a greater majority of that game. But obviously the big thing that come out of that game was Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans fighting once again. Once again, Mike Evans comes from nowhere and blasts Lattimore to the ground. Something after Lattimore was shit-talking Brady and Fournette was there, and then Evans was told by Bruce Arians to go get your boy, and Evans just threw him to the ground. Subsequently, Evans has been suspended for 1 game. Great timing. Love that. Thank you so much, Evans, in the NFL. I just can't thank you enough for being suspended this week in particular. And the Buccaneers signed Cole Beasley, so watch out for him. He's basically Mike Evans in disguise. Do you think one game was? I mean, what is your thoughts on the situation? And do you think one game was fair or not? I mean, take your Packers hat off when you give your answer. Do you think it was fair or not fair?
So I talked to a few people about it. At first blush, I didn't think it was fair. Um, it seemed like overkill, but what a few people told me, and this was people who were wearing their rose-colored Packers glasses. Their point was this isn't the first time it's happened with Lattimore. And if you go look back at the, who was it, Andre Johnson and
Finnegan?
Cortland Finnegan, yeah, the ongoing kind of hate that they had brewing for so long and what that eventually bubbled into, this was the NFL's way of trying to curb another situation like that and avoid another really bad look. So from that standpoint, I kind of get it. I didn't think it was super egregious by any means. I mean, sure, eject him from the game. I thought that was reasonable, but the suspension in a vacuum, I didn't think it was worth it. But I guess when you look at it holistically, perhaps the case could be made.
Yeah, I just hate the timing of it, but I think it's fair, and I think it sends a message to the kind of the other people in the league to not do the same. We're just gonna really. Oh, go ahead.
But it's going to review though, right? Doesn't he have to go to some
He
board
can
that's part of the
appeal it or
Players
something.
Association? Yeah, and one of the players that's a part of the appeal process is Derek Brooks.
Biased.
We'll see.
Can we get Kumaro on that committee too?
Hey, no, he's too busy balling out with the Buffalo Bills. Didn't you see him last night?
Yeah, I think Roger's gonna be crying in front of that full length
Yeah, he will be.
Kumaro picture he has in his closet. Let's get to some corrections from last week. My dad was not at the Fog Bowl game. That was not Walter Payton's last game, but he was at Walter Payton's last game, whenever and wherever that. Oh, well, obviously that's Soldier Field, but whenever that was. The rookie quarterback for Allen Robinson when he was the Jacksonville Jaguars started out as Chad Henne, and then he was benched for Bortles 3 games into the year. The Bears-Packers was actually 27-21 at half. The Bears did not add any garbage time touchdowns. They only scored 3 points in the second half.
Ooh, rough.
And then, I put this in the wrong section. I don't know why I put this in the corrections section, but Pete Carroll gave a speech to his team before the Russell Wilson game, citing the 72 Dolphins in there somewhere.
That's beautiful.
That's awful. All right, real quick, I have some games here that we are just going to briefly touch on, but in our opinions, there wasn't too much that happened in them. Broncos beat the Texans 16-9. Offense looked awful, coaching looked awful, but the Broncos won.
I got a text from a buddy that said, "Is Nathaniel Hackett going to be a one and done?"
Probably.
When it was before they scored that first touchdown.
He's taking a long look at his practices. Don't worry. Jaguars beat the Colts 24-0.
Hold on, before we go to that, did you see the footage of Russ on the sidelines? I just saw it on Twitter today.
That was
telling
from the
whole
Seahawks.
Sidelines.
That was from the Seahawks game.
The pass run, commit to it.
I hate this. So when people call him corny, I finally get it.
Dude, so bad. Yes, it was like the assistant O-line coach on my high school team trying to get people to engage on the sidelines. The replies were fantastic. It was like, so is Sierra bringing the Rice Krispie treats and orange slices to the post-game party? Who's got the Gatorade for halftime?
I don't understand how grown men listen to that and just not want to just punch him in the face.
Yeah.
He's so corny, and I'm going to have my lasers just focused on that for the rest of the week. Jaguars beat the Colts 24-0. It is Jacksonville's, I think, 9th straight win against Indianapolis in Jacksonville, which is definitely 100% why I picked him. So,
Frank Reich, hot seat, official.
Hot seat for sure. I think he's definitely the first coach of this year to go in the hot seat. I mean, Hackett has been one of the worst coaches, but he's also a rookie, so you got to give him a little. You at least got to give him one full season. Also, Matt Rule is definitely on the hot seat. Speaking of which, Giants won 19-16. Pretty awful game. A couple of lousy turnovers, a couple of really bad plays. But Giants are 2-0.
Can we – so hold on. Backtrack real quick. We just talked Colts, and I know they've just been in an ever-rotating quarterback cycle since Andrew Luck retired, but I forgot to mention this during our Cowboys-Bengals talk, and now seems like the appropriate time to do it. I don't know why. Um, but saw a stat today. You know how Andrew Luck just got his ass kicked the entire time he played quarterback?
Yep.
Sacked all the time. Through his first 33 games, including playoffs, or maybe it was 32 games, Andrew Luck was sacked 76 times. David Carr was sacked 101 times in his first 32 games. Thus far, Joe Burrow has been sacked 115 times in his first 32 games.
Tough.
Sorry, I just looked up and saw that.
It's pays to have a good old line. I'll tell you that. Patriots won 17-14. Again, another kind of a snoozer. The fans in Pittsburgh were chanting for Kenny Pickett at a certain point. It just seems like this offense isn't as good as it could be right now with Mitch Trubisky at the helm. The Rams almost let the Falcons win that game. Final score was 31-27. The Falcons almost got over their 28-3 curse.
The Rams almost falconed.
Yeah, seriously, I couldn't believe it, and definitely some questions have to be asked of the Rams and what's going on for them, because I don't think they're as good as they could be right now either. But it was very impressive by the Falcons to show the grit and determination to come back into that game. 49ers 27, Seahawks 7. Big story out of there was Trey Lance had a season-ending ankle injury. It just didn't. The play in question was like a quarterback draw up the middle where he had to go through the defensive line and then meet the linebackers at the point of contact. And it's just, again, kind of what I alluded to last week, where it's just like that is just a lot of punishment for a quarterback to take. Granted, it was an ankle injury, and kind of lower limb injuries kind of just randomly happen in football when people are rolling onto each other, or there's just a lot of mass coming into a small area. But I wouldn't want my potential franchise quarterback to be doing designed run plays up the middle if it was like goal to go, that's fine, but like good God, like you're setting the guy up to just get punished.
Well, I think the crazy thing about all this too is like this was the Trey Lance season. Like this is your let's see how this guy is, let's see what we can learn, how he can develop, and that's just gone. So A, that sucks for Trey Lance. B, I don't know what this does for the 49ers franchise if they just wait for his comeback next year and see how it all plays out. But it's wild because in the long run, this is probably worse for the 49ers franchise. But in the immediate, their Super Bowl odds improved.
Yeah, which is sad, but it's kind of crazy too. This was his third start in the last 3 years of football, and now it's been cut short again. So
yeah,
pretty wild. And then the Bills mopped the Titans last night, 41-7. It was pretty hard to watch. Stephon Diggs looked great. Titans didn't look great. Bills defense looked great. Bills look like the best team in football.
Bills are good. A.J. Brown's important. That's what I took from that game.
Right on.
And I took from that game that I love the Monday Night Football doubleheaders. I would be game for that every week.
I was racing last night, so I didn't get to watch too much of both games. But
I was busy celebrating my dog's birthday, and my dog likes to watch football, so we watched some football. And it was awesome the way they had it timed out, because right as the first half was ending in the Titans-Bills game, it was kickoff for the Eagles-Vikings game. And the ESPN was even doing side-by-side, so they had both games going at once at a few points, which, other networks won't do that for the most part. I don't think I've ever seen it, actually. So they just did I don't know, I thought they did a really nice job, and I would be totally game for more Monday Night Football doubleheaders.
Yeah, I guess more footballs. Oh, I'd rather have the extra game on Sunday, but that's just the red zone fan in me.
See, never been a red zone guy.
How dare you?
Packers, not by choice, but
Packers 27, Bears 10. Wow, I'm so shocked. I cannot believe the Bears lost at Lambeau. Can you believe that? That's insane.
Dude, you're the most boring fan of a rival
I'm rational.
Team I've ever. I know, and
I
it's
have
boring.
thoughts. I mean, I'm like angry about it, but it's like at the same time, you just accept it.
it's kind of how I was last week in a sense, except like I see where we're going, but it just sucks because I wish I could like say things to you that would get you riled up as a Bears fan, all in good fun, but I just can't because you'd be like, yeah, you think I don't already know that? I've been living with this for the last 15 years.
Like I'm expecting you to say, like, "Hey, Hickey, did you know that throwing the ball 11 times a game is not a winning recipe?" It's like, "Yeah, David, I know."
Okay, that's what was crazy about all that. That's what I did want to give you shit about that because I did think about that during the game about how towards the end of the preseason and even in the shitty weather in Chicago, we had talked about how the offense was starting to look like it was getting its legs under it. But there is no reason you should have thrown the ball more in that monsoon than you did in a 70-degree night at Lambeau. Like that to me was mind blowing. Don't get me wrong, the run game, David Montgomery is just always great at carving up the Packers defense. That like he's phenomenal on the ground against our defense. But there's just no excuse for essentially 9 passes until that last drive.
Yeah, and I know the Packers pass rush is very good, but you gotta just try. And it seemed like for the second week in a row, our first half offensive play calling was pretty atrocious. I mean, the first drive we had where we scored a touchdown actually didn't look half bad, and
Scripted
then
plays, buddy.
and
Scripted plays.
then it was three straight 3-and-outs to close out the half. So that was pretty much the only good offensive possession. Pretty much the whole game. Well, I think the first possession we had in the second half were Montgomery, where we did nothing but run plays. I don't like that style of football, but it worked. But
Welcome to the Big Ten.
I'm sick and tired of having gun shy play calling. I mean, you got to try. I don't care. I would rather throw a pick six than just run the ball into a 3-and-out. Or, and I know we don't have the most receiving talent in the history of ever. They made a good point on the broadcast that, like the Packers have had like 6 straight all-in seasons versus like the Bears are 80 million in the hole with salary cap this year. So it's like a bit of it's kind of like the Yankees hosting the Athletics right now. Like we just don't have as much money as we could, and we have a very young team, so it's not like anybody was actually expecting us to do well. But you got to try at least. You got to throw the ball. I mean, come on. You can't just sit there and throw the ball 11 times and expect it to have positive outcomes. This isn't. If it was like snow or rain or something, then maybe. But like, I just don't understand what the logic is behind it. And when the coach Flus comes in after the game and says, "We trust our quarterback to make any throw," it's like, really? Why don't you prove it then? Why don't you actually give him the ball and let him make some plays?
So, Matt, I have a question for you. Which NFL quarterback has the longest average time before pass?
Is it Justin Fields?
Correct. Guess who has the second highest off-target percentage in the NFL?
Is it Justin Fields?
Correct. Guess who, this is all next gen, the NFL's next gen stats. The average separation for Fields is also the 4th highest in the NFL, meaning
For
his
receiver?
receivers have the 4th best separation in the NFL. Again, this is through 2 weeks, so fairly meaningless, I know. And one was in a monsoon, and one was in a game that they threw the ball 11 times. But those all put a smile on my face.
Well, it's also it's offensive malpractice to have Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet just like barely involved in the game plan. That just makes no sense to me. And so I do have starting. I mean, we play Houston this week, so we finally are getting a team that's more of our caliber. Because I don't think San Francisco and Green Bay are teams that we are competing with this year. But so I think this week will be a really good test. But like I have questions for Luke Getsy right now because I just want my team to throw the football. I have been waiting for it for 4 years now. I get so tired of watching Justin Herbert put up 400 yards a game after 37 attempts, or Josh Allen carving a pretty good Titans defense last night, and it's just like, oh yeah, cool, we can't even execute a 5-yard slant. It just gets really frustrating. So it's like, I don't mind losing to the Packers. I know what's going to happen, but it's like I wish it looked like halfway competent on offense. And then defense, it was a lot of missed tackles, a lot of Aaron Rodgers targeting Kyler Gordon.
Yes, a lot of that. Running and throwing at him. A lot of the run plays also were in his direction, too.
Right. And that, I mean, he's a rookie. He's going to get better, but obviously it wasn't his best night. But it's like, again, I don't put too much stock in it because he's going to get better. He's still just learning. But defensively, we looked fine. I mean, we had the 2 lucky turnovers. Thankfully, that really helped keep us in it. I did think it was a touchdown. I hate a 4th and goal call where we are lining up in shotgun and doing a QB run up the middle. I hate that play call. That was the dumbest. That's like my version of the goal line fade for you. I hate that. But I do think it was a touchdown. I understand why they didn't call it a touchdown, but I do think it was one. And then for the fans at home that are claiming that's the reason we lost the game are just flat out wrong. But
I agree with you on both fronts. I thought it was a touchdown too, but I also don't think it cost him the game.
yeah, so on the
I
Packers
also
side,
laughed at.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I had a laugh at the whole like Packers pay the refs because there was that, and then there was like a non-holding call on Elton Jenkins that was very clearly a holding call that the refs missed. I think it was one of those we called a holding call to play before, and there really wasn't any holding, so this was our get right call. Not saying refs do that, but it was a get right call.
That's a hockey thing. But on the Packers side, I don't think there was anything that Aaron Rodgers did that terrified me. I I mean, you had talked about Sammy Watkins. He did have the one bomb, and he had the really good communication throw to Aaron Jones early on in the game that I thought was pretty cool.
So what did I say last week, or maybe it was the week before, that if this offense is going to succeed in any shape or form, especially early in the season, it has to come through the run game. And lo and behold,
isn't that what it's been the last couple
the
years?
pill. What's up?
Isn't that what it's been the last couple years?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's more important now than it has been the last couple of years.
But isn't the definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same result, or expecting a different result?
Yes, exactly. And in all of our losses, we don't run the ball. All of our wins, we run the ball. I gave you that stat last week that the Packers are like 0-6 when Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon rush it less than 15 times or whatever. It's some stat like that. So they have to run the ball.
My point is like, let's say you get to the Super Bowl against the Bills and you're down 14-0 7 minutes into the game. Are you just screwed then?
No, so that's why, again, I prefaced it by saying early in the season, because I still think the passing game is not going to be what it was last year. You're never going to replicate what you had with Devontae Adams and MVS. However, I think the passing game will get more efficient. It will get a little bit better. And I also think there is a chance that Aaron Jones, I know we kind of joked about this, but there is a very good chance he could be the number 2 leading receiver on this team come the halfway point of the season. And I know you kind of joke about, and maybe, well, you're not joking, I know you're serious about paying running backs. But, like, when he has games like he had on Sunday night, he does about as much as you can to justify a contract like that. His broken tackle rate right now is the highest in the NFL. Him and A.J. Dillon's yards per carry is through the roof. And, yeah, we got Elton Jenkins back, which was great. You could tell there was a ton of rust. He did not look like the normal Jenkins that we usually see, but still a very serviceable upgrade. And if David Bakhtiari ever comes back, and if he can, he will. Like, there's no one that's more upset about his current state of playing time and health than he is. So if there's any chance he can come back, I know he will. I was going somewhere with this, and I've kind of veered off track. But, back to the whole, like, yeah, you get in a shootout with the Bills. That's where this defense needs to figure themselves out, too, because the whole reason you have a defense that they're supposed to be top 5 is to prevent a team from getting up 14 or 17 nothing in the first quarter.
Yeah, and I guess to clarify on, like, the running back thing, to me, I wouldn't even classify Aaron Jones is your prototypical running back. I think he's just a playmaker that you can just put anywhere in that offense and he's going to make a play or make people miss or take a 2-yard play and turn it into a 9-yard play. So he's not the kind of running back mold that I would lump him into because I think he's just an excellent playmaker. I think that's the big takeaway I had from the game was that he was very good. I think the Packers pass rush is very good, but I think the Packers as a whole don't really terrify me to they shouldn't be put in the same sentence right now as like the Chiefs and the Bills. And I
Definitely
don't.
not.
They're not really. I
Definitely
mean,
not.
in the
But
NFC,
it's a 17-week process.
yeah, I
And I
guess
know it sounds super cliche, but look at like where the Rams were in October, November last year.
that's
No
true.
way did you have them on that level. I'm not saying the Packers are going to get there, but if you keep taking incremental steps forward and this defense stays healthy, I threw this stat in here too on the pass rush percentage per snaps. The top 7 right now have Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, and Rashawn Gary, all in the top 7.
Yeah,
And the
that's
other
good.
folks in that top 7 is Micah Parsons, Randy Gregory, Nick Bosa, and Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
Again, we're only 2 weeks in, but I'm just saying you keep kind of stacking these little wins. You get this rolling.
Well,
Quay
one of
Walker
those
looked good
wins is
again.
against the Bears, or you're one of the two samples in that is against the Bears. So I just don't know how much stock I put into it because the Bears are not a good football team.
Hey, a win is a win. I agree with you, but this was as much a we needed this mentally more so than we needed it from a talent standpoint. And we
Oh,
needed it. We
come
needed to
on!
win by.
You're telling me
We
they
needed to
didn't have
win.
this just circled as a W on the calendar when this first came out?
They probably did until after last week.
Well, yeah, I wasn't. Was no at no point was I'm like, all right, we got this. It's in bringing up the NFC because we talk about like in the AFC you got the Bills and the Chiefs and the Chargers and potentially the Ravens and the Dolphins and you got so much stacked talent going on over there and like the NFC like the only two teams that really concern me right now, well, one and a half. We'll say the Eagles concern me. I think they can definitely, if they can keep this going, they're going to be really strong. And then the Buccaneers defense really scares me. Other than that,
That
right now the NFC is pretty cloudy on like who is
it
actually going to be a force to be reckoned with.
very much so. I agree with that, 10,000%. I think again going back to the fact that the season is a 17-week process and you spend these 17 weeks. Yes, your goal is to win football games, but your goal is to get better each week. I think a guy like Tom Brady and a guy like Aaron Rodgers are going to be better in week 17 than they are now. But man, there is nothing that has been overly inspiring about either offense thus far outside of Aaron Jones. Really has been the one inspirational aspect.
No, Bucks offense hasn't struck any fear in me so far. So I expect.
It
I
will.
mean,
This week is going to be weird. It's going to
yeah,
be a weird week.
totally expected this loss, as I've said many times, and I've told David this before. I'm not just setting myself up for a aha, I gotcha when we come on the podcast because there is going to come a day when the Bears are actually good. I expect them to definitely be competing with the Packers next year after another round of free agency and a good draft class when we have a first round pick.
Do you know how
And
fun this show would have been if we did it during like the prime Jay Cutler
oh
years, early
god,
Aaron Rodgers years? Like when both
I
teams
would have
were
been
making
no,
the playoffs on a
I would
regular
be
basis.
angry. Like I'm there's many things about the game that miffed me. Mainly the offensive scheme and play calling, but like that you would have been seeing like dark hickey in those like the first year Trestman when you guys beat us in the final day. Like you would have seen me in a very dark place there.
I'm talking like 09, 2010, 2011
2010 you
Bears.
would have seen me in a very dark place. That's like my equivalent. Well, like I couldn't imagine doing that every year.
Dude, it sucks.
That's
You
awful.
I think
Uh,
each year I think I'm going to become numb to it, but I never do. And here I am goofing already like thinking, yeah.
yeah, I don't really have a whole lot else on it on the game. The man of the match for the Bears for me was a guy who was mentioned once, and that's Jalen Johnson. I know we had said that Kyler Gordon was picked on a lot. Jalen Johnson was picked on a whole 0 times, and I think he's allowed 0 catches so far through his first 2 games. So again, sample's pretty small. I imagine he'll be on Cooks this weekend, but for me, I think he is without a doubt the most underrated cornerback in the NFL right now. But he's going to get paid the following on. It's not this coming off season, but the next off season, he's going to get himself paid for sure. So definitely need to factor that into our future salary cap projections because he is awesome. I think I know who yours is.
Well, see, so I wanted to be fun. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be unique. I'm a defensive guy, so I want to go a defensive player. So I thought, well, maybe Preston Smith. He had 7 tackles, 2 sacks, played a really good game. Jair Alexander had a great
Well, we're
game,
not
great
going down this list of naming
interception.
off all 11.
No, those are the only two I was going to name.
Okay. Well, I
I
did like
said
EQ had like one catch on Jair. That was kind of fun.
that was pretty funny. Um, but I would be a fool if I didn't say it was Aaron Jones. Uh, this reminded me a lot of his Monday night game against the Lions last year, where he had 4 touchdowns. If it wasn't for the 2 kind of doofus fumbles that the Packers had, he probably would have had 3 touchdowns at least. Um, but the offense is absolutely better with Aaron Jones in the lineup. I know AJ Dillon is a good hammer back, but the Packers are going to find themselves in a really difficult spot when it comes down to, do you re-sign a now aging running back to his 3rd deal, or do you keep AJ Dillon around? But for the time being, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy having both. I love the I forget what they're calling it when they have both Dillon and Jones in, and I loved AJ Dillon lead blocking for Aaron Jones on a few occasions. That was a treat to watch. So it's Aaron Jones. The guy's phenomenal. It's a good story. He's a good guy. He's a fun player to root for, so I like when he has games like this.
Yeah, cool. Congrats. I think it's funny that
Hey,
the last 2 week ones you guys get trounced. You follow it up with a week Monday night NFC North. Well, I know we weren't on Mondays. A prime time game against a weak NFC North team both years.
it's a get right game, man. The NFL knows
Yeah.
what they're doing. They're helping us
Also,
out.
I tweeted this. Can we please, for the love of God, stop putting these games on prime time? Ain't no one. I know Chicago's a big market, but who
Dude,
cares?
it honestly, do you think NBC cares if it's a good game or if they get great ratings?
They're gonna get great ratings, but it's also like everybody's tuning in knowing fully well what the result already is. Wouldn't you rather
Okay.
watch the
What
Dolphins and Ravens?
you okay, that is the one game I could potentially see. What other game this week? Bengals Cowboys? But the Cowboys were just
I
on
mean,
last week.
Cardinals Raiders is a good matchup. I mean,
Mm.
obviously Chiefs Chargers were on Thursday night, but if they weren't, Eagles Vikings,
Monday night,
Saints Buccaneers,
Saints Bucks I could see a run for. But
Patriots
the thing
Steelers. If you're thinking like old school hard nosed AFC battle,
is to yeah, but that those franchises aren't what they used to be. And again, I
markets are
get what
huge
you're
though.
coming from, but they're always going to get huge numbers on this game because Chicago's a massive market. There's Packer fans all over the country, so when they don't get them locally, they always tune into the national games. It's still, as much as it's been lopsided, the NFL has done a pretty decent job of making it seem like it's still, the biggest rivalry in the NFL.
Like the
It's
Bears still
obviously the
have a
most
chance.
historic.
I think
Yeah,
the
so
Packers are one game away from tying the Bears in all time wins now.
it's pretty cool. Um, can I do a segment really quick that I don't know if this is gonna be permanent, but I just need to rant really quick. It's my last thing on this game.
Well, actually, I don't have a mouth guard for the week. Do you have a? Is this? Can we tie this into the mouth guard somehow?
Yeah, I'll do it then.
Okay. Let's see. So we can shift away from week 2 just for a second. We'll come back and talk about injuries before we preview our 2 games for the week. UCLA's attendance is being noticed by Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman is not a fan of how many people don't show up to UCLA football games and noted that when their team was #1 in the nation when he played there, the attendance was also bad. He wants a new stadium for UCLA that's much smaller and closer to campus. Um, how dare you, first of all? I don't think the solution to your problem is a new stadium because you have arguably one of the best stadiums in North America.
But I get where he's coming
I get
from.
where he's coming from.
I mean, how many UCLA students do you think have any form of transit outside of Uber rides?
Probably none.
So I get where he's coming from that standpoint of making it easier for the students to get there. But it's not like USC has great attendance either. I
No.
think LA is just a great TV market, and
Yes.
they're big names nationwide, so they probably get good TV numbers. But I mean, how many times have you seen the Coliseum sold out? Even when like Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart were in their
Even when
heyday.
the Rams were there, it wasn't sold out.
Yeah, no.
Um,
I mean,
I'm
one
not
other
an
thing on
expert
that.
of
Look at the
LA.
Dodge.
Well, I'm not an expert of
I was
LA,
gonna
but
s-
it's not really easy to get from point A to point B in LA.
No, if you look at Dodgers games, the stadium's not even full till the fourth inning, and it starts to clear out by the seventh
Well,
because
you know
people
why that is
know.
though. It's because there's only one road in and one road out to the Dodger Stadium,
Yes,
which is just like
yes,
who thought that was a good idea?
but also the Rose Bowl is not very easy to get to either. It's just
No,
kind of nestled
there's
in a
just
neighborhood.
nowhere in LA is easy to get to. So whatever, but I don't think I to Aikman's point, I don't think a new stadium's the right idea. And also, like, it would be such a bad business decision to kind of give up their rights to the Rose Bowl. I think that would just be a really it'll probably happen one day, but not now. I think the facility's not quite there yet to get rid of.
I mean, okay, but they don't own the stadium, correct?
Right, but if you just disassociate yourself with it, I think that's a bad business decision.
Well, what do you think they're really getting out of it?
Probably the name and the backdrop and the beauty of it, but they don't really have
But
a
what
home.
is that? I was gonna say,
It's
so what
just
is
for
that
like
doing for the?
marketing, but they don't get a home field advantage. I don't know how much revenue they get from it.
That's what I mean. From a business standpoint, it might not be the worst
I like the
idea.
Rose Bowl, right? Just get off my back about it.
I love it too, but in a lot of ways, maybe it should be like IMS: one race in May, one game in January.
I also don't like Troy Aikman, so there's that too.
That's fair.
Trey Lance, he was being rained on in Chicago, and then he went back to San Francisco and made it rain elsewhere. Did you like that? Thought about that all day. Trey Lance was spotted clubbing with strippers after his loss to the Bears. I know he has since been knocked out for the season. Do you have any issue with him celebrating with strippers after his loss?
I mean, it's not really in my repertoire of things I would want to do after a loss, but hey, man, whatever you got to do to get over a loss.
What do you always say?
I
Different strokes for different folks.
Different strokes for different folks, or as my uncle Mark used to say.
So the notable injuries, some of them we mentioned. So Trey Lance again out for the season with an ankle injury. James Conner has an ankle injury, but is listed as week to week. I think he's out this week. Jerry Jeudy has a shoulder injury, but they think it's not as significant as they were anticipating. So that's good news, but we'll keep an eye on that. Jadeveon Clowney hurt his ankle and is actually out Thursday against the Steelers. Dalton Schultz picked up a PCL injury on his knee, but it's not significant. Probably going to be out this week. Leonard Williams for the Giants, MCL sprain week to week. Akeem Hicks for the Bucks, foot week to week. Didn't need to play the Packers anyway, so that's fine. And then a really scary one last night was Dane Jackson, the corner from Buffalo, with a little bit of friendly fire. Snapped backwards. His neck looked in a very, very precarious spot when he was hit. Thankfully, he's okay. Got movement in all of his extremities. Was actually released from the hospital today, Tuesday. So thankfully, it looks like he's going to be okay. I'm imagining he'll be out for this next game, but it could have definitely been a lot worse for him there. So we're thankful for that.
That one was hard to watch.
Let's do.
That was one of those stop showing the replay.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's do your Mouthguard, and then we'll do predictions for our games this week.
All right, so my get this guy a Mouthguard / lighting sun watch. I'm combining the two into one, so whatever. Is the national media, local media, everyone that wants to continuously talk about the failure of the Green Bay Packers to draft Aaron Rodgers a weapon in the first round. So a couple of things on that front. First and foremost, in Aaron Rodgers' entire career, what has been the biggest gripe against the Green Bay Packers? Matt?
Their fans are annoying on Twitter.
Okay, second biggest gripe. He doesn't have a defense. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a defense. It was always put up as many points as you can. So why on God's green earth would you not draft defense in the first round if that's the area of your team you're trying to consistently make better? Why would you draft a first-round receiver when you have guys like Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, Donald Driver, James Jones, Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb? There's no need to draft a first-round weapon when your defense is your issue and you have those receivers. Secondly, good friend of mine, Zach, brought this up. Has anyone ever thought to look at just the Packers' draft tendencies over the course of the last 25 years when they've had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And I know someone out there is going to say, well, maybe that's why they only have 2 Super Bowls, because they never drafted them weapons in the first round. But even when we had Brett Favre, we did not draft him an offensive, quote-unquote, offensive weapon until 2000 when we drafted Bubba Franks, and then 2002 when we drafted Javon Walker. So, point being, clearly the Packers have done just fine. I shouldn't say just fine, because there should be a couple more Super Bowls. But point being, the offense isn't the reason for those missed opportunities. So I'm just really sick and tired of that narrative. I think it is so overblown. It's so old. It's so tired that can we just drop it, please? I mean, I don't know. That's just my opinion from the Packers side of things. I don't know how you feel as a Bears fan. I don't know if you chuckle at that stat. I don't know if it's meaningless.
They've been doing
Because,
just
again,
fine with guys like Cobb, Adams, Nelson.
if anything, we should be celebrating the fact that they find guys like Devontae Adams and Jordy Nelson in the second round.
Yeah, it's like, do I care that the Bears drafted Darnell Mooney in the 5th round? No. Am I happy that he's on my team? Yes. Doesn't matter.
How'd
where he
your
was drafted.
last first-round receiver work out?
Terrible. I was so excited too because I saw him play against Alabama, Kevin White, and I was like, "Guy's going places." So yeah, just because you're a first round pick doesn't mean you're going to pan out. The only one that makes me laugh though is Jordan Love. That'll never not be funny to me.
Yes, that is very funny.
I'm a big believer in drafting the best player available, barring like if you have Aaron Rodgers in his prime, you don't draft a quarterback if he's available. But if you have Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes, and the next best player up in the draft is a corner, I would say take him. Take the guy who's going to pan out for your team in the long run, not the guy that you need the immediate need for, but not quite sure if they're going to be the best. So I have no problem with them going heavy on defense and or not, picking quote unquote skill players. Real quick, one fan question before we get to the predictions. Zach Glenn wants to know, is this this patio guy?
Yep, this is Mr. Patio.
Thoughts on your rookies through week 2? So Kyler Gordon, again, a lot of upside for me. I think he's got a lot of potential. Just he's doing okay. Jaquan Brisker, I really like. I think he's going to pan out really well. And then Dominique Robinson, I wish we got to see more of him on the defensive line. I think he's going to be great. Yeah. Although, I mean, we got a lot of people in a sea of – we got a lot of guys on 1- and 2-year deals. So it's hard to get attached to too many people right now because I know a lot of the kind of the stopgaps that we're signing are probably not going to be on the team next year. But some of the rookies give me hope. And I don't give Ryan Poles the benefit of the doubt. So it's a process, but I think I'm looking forward to seeing how they develop as we get to kind of some of the easy – we got the Texans and the Giants the next 2 weeks. So a little more in our avenue.
So on the Packers side, everyone already knows what a big fan of Quay Walker I am. I think he could be a stud for a long time, even just out of this small sample size. I haven't seen a ton of Devontae Wyatt yet. His snap count's been a little bit low, but the way the defensive line is playing right now, it's hard to justify just throwing a guy in there, but hopefully he gets into that rotation a little bit more as the season goes on. Christian Watson, great route runner. Just needs to keep building that trust with 12, which, again, I think will come in due time. Let's see who else did I have any other big thoughts on. We had a pretty big draft class this year. Yeah, Dobbs, excited for. Clearly can be a early contributor to the offense. I think he will probably – his ceiling probably isn't as high as Watson, but I think his contributions early on will be greater. Those are kind of the main ones I have any sort of strong feelings on right now, other than, of course, Zach Tom. We'll see. I can't wait till 2025 rolls around, and he's just like pulling the Lucas Patrick special and just kind of out there living his best life on the O-line. This one's for Zach, too. We're going to get Zach Tom to sign the Miller Lite lineman can at the next Packers softball game. That's our goal.
Oh, boy. All right. Bears-Texans this week in Chicago. Texans don't really do it for me. It's going to be nice to have Lovie Smith back in Chicago, though. I do see us prevailing. I don't often pick the Bears to win, so when I do, they better not make me look stupid. I have a final score. I don't think it's going to be a huge offensive game. So I think it's going to be, somewhere in the region of 14-10, 14-9, Bears win.
This week has gotten infinitely harder for me now that the Mike Evans suspension has come about. Packers versus Buccaneers. My head going into this game all offseason has said loss because whenever we go to the state of Florida, we just seemingly forget how to play football. So my heart is tugging me closer and closer to a Packers victory. God. I might change it before we do our official picks for the sake of remaining consistent. Buccaneers 23, Packers 20.
I just think to me, it's that Bucs defense. And I could be wrong. Maybe they'll expose them in some sort of way, or maybe they'll figure out something. But the Bucs defense through 2 weeks has given me no reason to think that they're just going to break for the Packers. So they are just really good in the front seven, especially. So
incredibly good defense, yes.
That's that. 2 weeks down, many to go. But we really appreciate everybody listening. If you want to hear a fan question or have any feedback or anything you want to hear on the show, please just let us know. We will be ramping up some of our social media efforts here soon on Facebook and YouTube, so we're really looking forward to that. But Facebook page coming soon, more YouTube videos coming soon. All these podcasts end up on YouTube just in case you're looking for a change of pace and want to listen to it on a web browser at work or something. But anyways, thanks for listening, and we hope you have a good one.